Welcome to the Disney Parks Podcast, your Disney infotainment podcast. Keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the podcast at all times and get ready for the Disney Parks Podcast.
Hey, welcome to the show. We have a fantastic show. We are thrilled. We are joined by the master, a themed storyteller, Jason Surrell, former Walt Disney Imageenerr and former creative force over at Universal Creative. Jason has brought some of the most iconic theme park attractions to life. We'll get into what those are. He's also the author of a bunch of fan favorite books that will kind of peel back the curtain on some of Disney's attractions. So whether you're a fanatic of parks or storytelling or just want a good story about behind the scenes, this is the episode for you. Jason's going to break it all down for us. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. We'd like to ask everybody, the first question is, how did your journey with Disney begin?
Well, my journey with Disney began probably in earliest childhood, when I obviously became hooked on the parks and the Sunday night TV show and the movies. Right. But in terms of my job, that was actually pretty early on, too. I was actually a Jungle Cruise skipper on the Walt Disney World College program.
Nice.
My freshman year of college. So it's kind of a really cool first industry job to have, and it's certainly a really cool first Disney job to have because of all of the lore and mystique associated with Jungle Cruise and the skippers.
Sure. How did you land that position? I mean, Jungle Cruise, usually somebody, winds up, in custodial or food or merch.
Well, it's funny because during the recruiting process, I want to say there was some correlation between your major and where they might place you in the park. And I was a business major at the time, and I don't really recall where it said I would likely be, but I hit the recruiter pretty hard with the Jungle Cruise thing, and I think the over-the-top enthusiasm and passion must have won him over because I did see him jot it down.
Yeah,
and then,
right.
However long later when I got my offer letter, sure enough, it said,
Wow.
Magic Kingdom West attractions, Jungle Cruise.
Wow.
So I must have won him over in the room, or perhaps he felt sorry for me. Who's to say?
Yeah. So how long did you work as after the college program? Did you take on other jobs after that and progress, in other park roles?
Yes, a bunch of us came back the second summer. I believe later on Disney would have a kind of a returning alumni thing, but at the time it was just, I think, 6 of us coming back and sharing a 2-bedroom apartment. So that was a lot of fun.
Right.
But that was the summer of my sophomore year, and returned to Jungle Cruise for a little while. And then a few weeks in, I auditioned for entertainment. And actually got cast as Pluto at Epcot. So
very cool.
I moved over to entertainment, and that was really where I feel like I finally found my tribe. I finally found my people.
Yeah.
To the point where it motivated me to transfer colleges from Miami University in Ohio down here to the University of Central Florida, so that I could continue going to school while working, with the idea being I'm racking up all of that Disney experience in the meantime.
Right.
And it turned out to be kind of a fateful move because literally within 1 month of moving down here, a fellow character, a Goofy, must be something about the dogs, I guess, he came up to me and said, "You seem to be a pretty good writer. Would you want to work on this show idea that I have?" And I think it was because I had done some departmental newsletters, and I would post the David Letterman style top 10 lists in the rehearsal room every morning. And being a 21-year-old idiot, I didn't realize that 21-year-old idiots did not pitch shows.
Right.
But instead, I just went, sure, let's do it. And somehow, we put together a pitch for this character Christmas show. We even got a third character who was also Goofy, if I'm not mistaken. You want to stick with the dogs when you're dealing with creativity.
Keep it in the pound.
Exactly. Keep it in the pound. Keep it in the family. Another Goofy actually did a rendering for us, a
Oh,
sketch
wow.
of what we thought this little show experience would look like, and he would go on to be a Walt Disney animator. So
Wow.
it was definitely kind of a fateful show. It somehow managed to make its way through the approval process and got produced. And they sent me over to what was then called Walt Disney Creative Entertainment,
Hmm.
where I got to work with a man named George Kohler, who was a legendary Disney show director. And he
Right.
basically said, "You're going to do my job. You're just not going to get credit for it." And again, being a 21-year-old idiot, I'm like, why not?
Sure.
And he said, because you're a 21-year-old nebbish, which
Right.
is Yiddish for nobody or nothing. And he didn't mean it mean. He's a lovable,
Yeah.
sweet guy. But he was being totally honest. He said,
Right.
so my advice to you is to keep your eyes and ears open. And by the end of this experience, you will have had a master's degree in Disney entertainment. And
Hmm.
that's what happened. And
Yeah.
then shortly after that, I transferred over to Disney MGM Studios, started up the same sort of extracurricular activity. And after a few years of this, if you were to look at my resume, it
Hmm.
actually would look on paper like I knew what I was doing. And that's ultimately what got me hired over at Universal Studios Florida
Right.
Entertainment at the time, where I became part of the original team behind Halloween Horror Nights and Mardi Gras. But
Wow.
it all goes back to the jungle and the dog pound for me.
Wow. Wow. So what just keep the Disney for a second. So what was your first role with Imagineering or working for the, a paid role, not
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
college
Well,
program.
yeah, that was 5 years after I
Okay.
left.
Okay.
5 years after I started working for Universal, rather.
Hmm.
And there was just an opening for a show writer at Walt
Okay.
Disney Imagineering
Right.
here in Florida. And I had literally just spent the last year or two on the project team for Islands of Adventure. I was the show writer for Jurassic Park.
Oh,
So
fantastic.
that e-ticket experience, I think, is what finally put me over the top and made me an attractive candidate, for Imagineering. So I started there in January of '99. So I was 28 years old. Had a few years under my belt, but
Hmm.
was still relatively new to the industry. And I really feel like I got most of my formal training and experience at Walt Disney Imagineering. I'm definitely a Disney storyteller
Right.
at heart.
Right. So for us lay people that don't know, what does a show writer do? What would some of the tasks you would get involved with?
Well, I think they have since changed the title to story editor, which
Okay.
is more in line with industry job titles, entertainment industry. But a show writer, as you might imagine, writes, and that can be anything from the storyline of an attraction, a
Hmm.
hotel, a restaurant, a retail shop, you name it, it's got a show writer.
Yeah.
And then all of the other kind of writing that you see in the parks, whether it's menu copy or the plaques that you see when you go into the Hall of Presidents or some of the gallery spaces at Epcot.
Right.
Graphics copy, nomenclature, naming things.
Yeah.
One of my biggest claims to fame is I named Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. So I am the scourge of parents everywhere who are now spending hundreds of dollars transforming their children. Uh, but yeah, a little bit of if you can write it, I wrote it,
Yeah.
and that was really what gave me my education in themed entertainment. Not to mention the fact that I had been brought up on Disney and was sort of hardwired to think about it in that way, to
Yeah.
begin with.
Yeah. What work did you do? I know you wrote a whole book about the Haunted Mansion. Did you do any actual show writing on the Haunted Mansion as well?
Yeah, a couple of different projects, enhancements, as we call them.
Hmm.
I've been involved with three. One was the Madame Leota tombstone that is out in the family plot, before you enter the
Right.
Florida mansion. And that was a big deal for me because having been so inspired by Ex Atencio, the famous
Mm.
show writer and
Yeah.
lyricist, for Grim Grinning Ghosts and Yo Ho,
Right.
just to know that I have an epitaph sitting alongside his among
Right.
the classics, means a lot to me. And then I was part of the Walt Disney World 2007 enhancement where we added the endless staircase and
Mm-hmm.
binaural audio to the stretch rooms and a
Right.
number of different show enhancements throughout. But that involved an entirely new scene, the endless staircase. So got to actually work on something that was built and
Yeah.
added to the Haunted Mansion. And then I also did a little bit of work on the 2011 enhancement that added the extended queue out in the graveyard. I came up with one of the puzzles or limericks for the graveyard, and that was simply
Yeah.
because they knew my association. The team knew of my history with the mansion and wanted to get me in there
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I also worked on the spell book for the Madame Leota scene,
Wow.
the floating Leota scene. So I guess that's 4 different enhancements that I've been involved with over the years, but so not major things in the grand scheme of things, but just to have the opportunity to touch a classic at all
Sure. Yeah.
in that way has been very, very fulfilling.
Yeah. And a huge fan favorite. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
a lot of Haunted Mansion lore and stories out there.
Yeah, Haunted Mansion and Pirates, which were
Yeah.
not coincidentally my first 2 books, it seemed to just be 2 of the crown jewels that will never lose any of their luster.
Yeah.
They're still packing them in today, just like they did decades ago, starting at Disneyland.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you had a chance. I think I saw the behind the scenes at a D23 event, the Pirates show. I think it's in Shanghai, where it's the whole. It's not just a walk through a pirate. The pirate ship moves sideways. There's people jumping off, and they're flying, and then they're bouncing back up to. Have you seen that show in person or had any
Well,
involvement?
there's in Shanghai. There's the attraction, which incorporates a lot of media elements to really
Right.
make you
Yeah.
feel like you're immersed in the action, and then the live show,
Okay,
which
that's it.
famously
Yeah.
features Jack Sparrow in kind of a wind not a wind
Yeah.
tunnel, but like a like
One of those
a parachute
parachute fans.
free fall experience. Yes,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
they basically wanted to be able to stage a sword fight in the middle of a typhoon or
Right.
hurricane.
Right.
I
Right.
have not seen either one
Yeah,
of them yet.
yeah.
I still need to make it out there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've heard nothing but raves about Pirates at Shanghai altogether.
Yeah,
Both
yeah.
the attraction and the show.
Right. So how has technology helped, or maybe I'm not gonna say hindered, but how does it help tell the story? For you, when you're thinking about writing something for, say, an attraction, do you say, "Oh, it would be great if this could do that," or do you go to the Imagineers and say, "Hey, listen, what is some of the technology or things that you're going to do," and then write to that, or do you just write your story and then hope that they can make it happen?
Well, in a perfect world, the answer is all of the above, because
Okay.
especially at a place like Imagineering, people from the concept side or the show side, routinely have meetings with the ride team and the R&D people. So there's always this sort of cross pollination going on, and there have been moments where I've sat in a conference room and pitched something to the ride guys, and they'll say, "Oh no, we can't do that," or
Right.
"That's too similar to something else." Or on the flip side, they'll come and say, "Look at all these cool new things that we can do."
Hmm.
And then those become additional tools in the toolbox, on the conceptual end when it comes to dreaming up this stuff.
Right.
And it's kind of fun. In a perfect world, though, you would just write whatever the guest experience it is that you're dreaming of,
Hmm.
write that. And
Right.
the challenge, the inherent implied challenge in anything, in this business, is that other incredibly smart people will join the team and help you figure it out.
Sure.
And that's ultimately what usually happens. And sometimes that yields brand new prototypical ride systems, things that have
Mhm.
never been done before. Sometimes it results in quantum leaps forward in audio animatronics.
Right.
So it really depends on the project and who you have on that team that's pushing the envelope, to constantly make these better and better and more immersive experiences.
Right. How many times will it get revised? And then who gets the final say, well, this is it. This is the final draft. We're going with this.
Well, it's interesting because that can change. Sometimes it's the creative director of a
Hmm.
project, but
Okay.
the creative director has folks to answer to, whether it's the head of a creative studio, the head of a portfolio,
Hmm.
or ultimately the chief creative officer, whoever that is. And
Right.
sometimes you get into things that literally go all the way up to a CEO
Yeah.
level.
Right.
Like, for example, when I was part of the really small team that pitched Epic Universe to Comcast and got the park sold, and
Yeah.
that was Brian Roberts, the head of Comcast, the
Wow.
corporate parent company,
Yeah.
and a lot of his lieutenants. So,
Right. Right.
so the more expensive something is, the bigger deal it is, the higher it's going to go
Right.
in terms of who's going to sign off on it. But hopefully, if you have strong leadership in place, they have confidence in their creative teams and are going to rely on them to deliver the best
Right.
guest experience.
Right. Let's talk about Universal a little bit too, because I mean, Epic is is just that, Epic. It seems to have the perfect name, and I feel like it kind of made Disney flinch a little bit. Like, like we've seen pictures now of Bob Iger and Josh D'Amaro, and there were a lot of funny memes like, are they interviewing for jobs over there now? But what was the process of bringing? I've been there once, and I'll go back when it gets cooler because it's summer. But it is truly immersive. I feel different than the other Universal park down the road. I feel there's a lot of, well, the Harry Potter stuff is all immersive. That's fantastic. But then I feel like the other sides of the park are more Six Flagish, not so themed, but there's attractions, and those attractions have theming, but the areas in between them don't keep you in the story as much. Whereas Epic it's storytelling from land to land to land. I mean, once you're in there, you can't see anything. You don't know really, it gives you that immersive experience. You don't know really where you are. Oh, I'm in a Nintendo game, because you can't see anything else outside of that area. So, what did it take to bring that to life? I mean, what was the story planning? How did that go? I mean, how long did this take? I don't even really know the backstory to it
Well,
as much.
we started in, I think, the fall of 2016, and it
Yeah.
just opened, a couple months ago.
Hmm.
So that gives you an idea right there,
Wow.
of how long these things take. That's 9 years, or the better part of 9 years.
Wow.
And I was part of the project for the first 2 years or so, where we picked the IP and programmed the park, and
Yeah.
figure out what it's going to be and what a guest's day is going to look like.
Right.
And part of what we felt from the very beginning is, we've just had these huge successes with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Hogsmeade, and then the
Hmm.
Wizarding World of Harry Potter
Hmm.
Diagon Alley. What if Universal's next theme park is nothing but that?
Mm.
Single IP immersive lands where once you cross the portal and
Yeah.
enter that realm, for the most part, you don't see any of the seams. You don't see the outside world.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, at the same time, Universal has historically never cared as much about sight lines, whereas
Hmm.
at Disney, you would never want to be able to see
Yeah.
Frontierland from Adventureland, and
Right.
Fantasyland from Tomorrowland. You get it, and there are exceptions, of course, as
Sure.
there are with everything. But with Universal, there's very rarely any attempt to hide roller coaster track, which at Disney would be in a building somewhere.
Right. Hmm.
Universal considers it actually a sculptural element.
Hmm.
When designing the skyline of a park,
Right.
we build the roller coaster track into it, and
Yeah.
so many of them have been so skillfully integrated. Um,
Yep.
it elevates it above, as you said earlier, a Six Flags experience.
Right.
So Velocicoaster and
Hmm.
the Incredible Hulk coaster, those feel like organic parts of the Islands of Adventure skyline. And looking
Right.
across the lagoon, I can see Marvel Superhero Island, Toon Lagoon, Jurassic Park,
Right.
Wizarding World of Harry Potter, Seuss Landing. Um, and that's by design. And
Yeah.
in that park, in that application, it works. Just like at Epic Universe, I can be standing in Celestial Park and look off and see the mountain in Burke, or
Right.
the top of Frankenstein Manor in Dark Universe.
Yeah.
And that's okay too, because they're little weenies that draw
Sure.
you across the park into these individual realms. But then
Yeah.
for the most part, once you pass through the portal to enter those lands, you are for the most part sealed inside. And again,
Yeah.
there are exceptions, of course, where we break some sight lines.
Right.
You can definitely see Stardust racers from a
Right.
number of places
Yeah.
from the Isle of Burke.
Yeah.
But it's meant to be that way. And I think because of that, it works. It's when things aren't thought through and aren't planned for that parks start to take on that more chaotic quality, where everything's competing for your attention and you don't know where to look, you don't know where to go, because it's all grown up so haphazardly. But
Right.
if a park is really thought through in those earliest days, and the long-term master planning is kept in mind,
Yeah.
you can control that. And you can, when you add something new to those parks, it's much easier to integrate them in a way that makes sense, because the park's been laid out in a thoughtful way to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you, for you, do you compare them? Like, Disney does this good, Universal does this better. Disney, do you compare those things? I mean, having worked in both places, what's the, in your mind, what's the difference between the two, if there is one?
The funny thing is, in terms of the art of the theme show, there isn't
Yeah.
a whole lot of difference, because
Okay.
we're all trying to do the same thing, which
Sure.
is tell stories that take people out of their everyday lives and literally thrust them into the middle of an alternate reality.
Right.
John Hench at Disney famously said, someone asked him years ago about virtual reality and would Disney get into virtual reality, and he said, "We've been doing virtual reality for 50 years down in Anaheim." And he's
right.
That's really what
Yeah.
the industry is. It's creating alternate realities for people to inhabit, for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's the same, I think, at both companies. And then you can quibble about who does
Yeah.
better rock work, or
Sure.
who does better animated figures. And then, a couple of those areas are a bit of an arms race, where one company will top them, then the next company will come along with something better, which is actually what you want.
Right.
You want healthy competition to keep
Yeah.
everybody on their toes, because
Sure.
I think it's a cliche, but as George Lucas says, cliches are cliches for a reason, because they work.
Right.
A rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
So within the industry, is there a competition at the corporate level? Of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But the industry, this community of designers and storytellers, is so small. We're all rooting for each other, because
Sure.
a win for one company in many ways is a win for everybody. What's good for Orlando is good for both Disney and Universal, and it doesn't matter who has the bright shiny new object.
Right.
The rising tide is going to lift all
Yeah.
ships.
Yeah. I think the battle is the heads and the beds.
Yeah, exactly.
Who can get them to stay at their resort is really a thing, because they're going to wind up going to both. It's where they're going to rest their head at night, and that's a different story. Is there something at either of the parks, an attraction or something that you said, God, I wish I could have gotten my hands into that? I had ideas, or the one thing that got away that you didn't get to work on.
Well, what's interesting is, for me, that thing got away and yet got built at the same time. I put in about a year on Star Wars Galaxy's Edge before it became what it became, which is the planet Batuu. But a lot of the stuff that we came up with for the original several versions of what Star Wars Land was going to be make me cry myself to sleep at night. Like I really hope that one day we get a chance to share some of those things with people, because I think you'd have grown adults weeping in the streets. So in my case, it's something I did get to work on, and yet it still got away at the same time, only because there was such a shift. But you can't argue with what they built. It's absolutely stunning, and it's got two killer e-ticket attractions, and Rise of the
Yeah.
Resistance is as great as anything out there.
Yeah. You talk about technology telling the story. There's a lot of tech in that ride. There's a lot of
Yeah,
tech.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also a good example of deploying technology as a tool.
Yeah.
It's not technology for technology's sake.
Right.
It's the right tool for the right moment. And
Yeah.
Rise of the Resistance is the perfect example of this experience that unfolds in like movements, and
Right.
all of those pieces connecting together uh, to create this one master experience for you
Right.
and tell this one big story.
Yeah.
And the way the pieces of that puzzle are put together are pretty ingenious, and it resulted in something that we've never seen before, in
Yeah.
a theme park.
One of my favorite things about going there is the soundscape. The,
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
what is happening in the background is just fascinating. There's radio conversations going on. There's beeping, but you're just sitting there and just listening to the soundscape is really the best part of that whole area. The attractions are great. Don't get me wrong, but the soundscape is fantastic. It's one of
Well,
the
it
best things.
completes the soundscape completes the illusion.
Yeah.
And when you consider how much of communication is what we're hearing,
Mhm.
and what we're taking in through our ears, and in the case of Galaxy's Edge, you're hearing the sounds of that world, whether
Right.
it's transmissions, droids,
Yeah.
incoming starships, whatever it happens to be. And that works on a subconscious level to really make you feel like, no, I'm in a place that really exists where people are coming and going.
Yeah.
I'm not in a movie, I'm in Star Wars. I'm living Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. The tagline was "Live your best Star Wars life," right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
I feel it needs a show. Maybe not a show, but I don't know, some kind of, I don't know, some kind of entertainment piece. But that's for another
Well,
day.
that's the cool thing about the Disney parks. As Walt said, Disneyland will
They're
never be
evolving.
completed as long as there's imagination left in the world. And I
Yeah.
think I personally view Galaxy's Edge as kind of a living canvas that
Yeah.
they're always going to be working with to offer new experiences or change things or tweak things to bring new elements like that
Yeah.
into the land. Keep
Yeah.
it
I know
healthy.
Disneyland's got a nighttime thing they're doing there in their Galaxy's Edge. I think it'll make it out here. We'll see. We'll swap them for an Avatar Land. We'll give you an Avatar Land if you send us your Galaxy's
Horse
Edge show.
trading, yeah.
Exactly. So how did you get into the book writing? You've written 2 books, Pirates and Haunted Mansion, 2 world-class attractions that everybody thinks they know the story, but maybe doesn't know the story after they read the books. So how did this slip into your portfolio?
Well, I think it's closer to half a dozen by
I'm
now,
sure there is.
and then contributed to a few more with articles and
Mhm.
little written pieces for some Imagineering books that we did. But in terms of the Haunted Mansion, it came about primarily because I was bored. There wasn't a whole lot going on at the time at work, and I was
Right.
feeling a little antsy. This is in 2002. And I knew that we had the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean movies coming up in 2003. So I was walking by my VP's office one day and I said, "Hey, how do we go about pitching a book?" And he said, "I don't know, ask Marty," because
Right.
Marty was still in charge then, and you could just
Yeah.
pick up the phone and call Marty Sklar, like
Yeah.
one does,
Right.
everyday
Sure.
activity. So basically, I talked to Marty and I said, "Look, we got the Haunted Mansion movie coming out next year. So it seems obvious that there's going to be a lot of tie-in merchandise to support it. Because I don't know
Hmm.
if you know this, Disney likes to bring out a lot of consumer products to support whatever it is they're doing. They're very
As I
good
think it
about
was
that."
Eisner said, synergy.
Yeah, exactly. They're very considerate that way.
Right.
So I thought, well, what if we do a book about the Haunted Mansion that'll talk about the making of the movie, but it's really a Trojan horse to get the story of the attraction out there. And he said, "I love this idea. Write me a book proposal." Click. And I'm like, "Great. How do I do that?" I got no clue, no idea
Right.
whatsoever. So I basically wrote a book proposal the same way that I would write a treatment for an attraction or a restaurant or a shop
Right.
or anything else, and then divided it up into 13 chapters because I was trying to be clever. Sent it out to him. We got on the phone again.
Hmm.
He had some notes, a little back and forth, and then finally said, "Okay, this is perfect. Now write me a proposal letter to send off to the publishing people in New York." Click, and I'm like, "Great. What does that look like? I've never done that either. This is all
Right.
just
Sure.
dropped into my lap." So I thought, well, one of the things you do for a living is pitch. You try to sell
Hmm.
ideas for a living. So I literally wrote a proposal letter
Hmm.
that was not dissimilar to the way I would pitch one of
Right.
our projects. And then I got a call from New York. They said, "We love it. We're going to take it to our big sales and acquisition meeting this Wednesday, and we'll let you know." Because I think the big thing is they wanted to do it and thought the project had legs, but they wanted to make sure that they could get buy-in from
Yeah.
the parks merchandise people,
Sure.
so that they knew that the parks would carry it. So all that Wednesday, I'm waiting with bated breath, and then finally I get a call Wednesday evening from the lady who would become my editor,
Okay.
Jody Revinson, and she said, "Well, I've got good news and bad news," and I'm like, "Okay." She goes, "The good news is we're doing the book." And I went, "Wow, that is good news. Well, what's the bad news?" And she said, "Well, in order for this book to come out with the movie, the Haunted Mansion movie, we need a finished manuscript in January. And this is like October." So I was like,
No
"Yikes,"
pressure.
and again, I'd never done it before, so I didn't know if that was unreasonable or not, but it
Yeah.
didn't matter because that's what we had to do.
Right.
So I immediately went into my research and my interviews, and
Yeah.
that turned out to be not entirely true because the movie didn't even go into principal photography until sometime in January.
Oh.
So I think I wound up finishing it actually in May, but it
Okay.
still came out, with the movie, and I got to spend a couple weeks out on location on the set with the cast and the behind the scenes folks, and it was really the thrill of a lifetime. And to get to write a book about that, about what is probably my single favorite
Mm.
attraction of all time, was
Yeah.
really something.
Yeah. What do you think of the newer version of the Haunted Mansion movie? I'm sure you've seen
I
it.
think there's something to recommend all of them. I don't
Yeah.
think they've quite nailed it with any of them.
Right.
But I did enjoy the most recent one. I think
Yeah.
the reason I enjoyed that one and the 2003 one as much as I do is the production design, the character, the creature design,
Hmm.
and the costumes for both of those films
Yeah.
are stunning.
Right.
So if you're a fan of the attraction, part of the fun of either one of those movies, and they're exactly 20 years apart,
Right.
2003 to 2023, they're both just a feast for the senses because you see things that you recognize for the attraction from the attraction, or just seeing these environments that you love so much adapted for the big screen and blown up to be so larger than life. It's like
Right.
you're just trying to take it all in,
Yeah.
just because there's an abundance of detail. I still hope one day they'll let Guillermo del Toro make his
Mm.
long rumored Haunted Mansion film, because I think he has the perfect sensibility for it and would
Right.
bring an additional romance and gravitas to it that the
Right.
two versions possibly did not have.
Yeah.
Because again, they were also meant to be light family comedies,
Yeah.
and that obviously puts you in something of a tonal box.
Right.
Um, but I do find both very enjoyable in their own
Yeah.
rights.
Yeah. And the pirate book, did that came after the Haunted Mansion book?
It came after, and the funny thing is, it was pitched at the same time.
Oh.
Because both Pirates and Mansion were going
Yeah.
to come out in 2003.
Hmm.
So when I was talking to Disney Editions about the Pirates book, I said, I also have the exact same concept, but for pirates, from the
Hmm.
Magic Kingdom to the movies.
Right.
And I'll never forget, Jody goes, "Nope, nope, no Bruckheimer books. We don't want to do any Bruckheimer books." I go, what are you talking about? She goes, "Well, our last two have gone right in the toilet. Armageddon and Pearl Harbor. We're not doing another one." And I thought, I think this is a little different. We
Yeah.
got Johnny Depp. They seem to be taking this pretty seriously. Nope,
Yeah.
nope, don't want to do it. And then about a year later, right around the time the movie was crossing 300 million at the box office, I get a
Oh my
call from
gosh.
my editor saying, "We're really disappointed that we didn't do a Pirates book." And I went, "That's funny because I seem to recall having a conversation like this about a year ago."
Right.
And I said, I know, we get it. And that was how Pirates came about. But it took the blockbuster success of the film
Yeah.
for that book to get greenlit.
Yeah. I just read there's a rumor that Pirate 6 may, the movie may come about. What do you think of that? Do you think
Well,
it
I
has
think
legs? Can we keep this going? Is the
no,
question.
as far as I know, it is happening.
Oh,
Because
really?
there was just the news broke just yesterday or the day before that Orlando Bloom had signed for it.
Oh, wow.
So we're definitely getting Johnny and Orlando back,
Wow.
which I think is a great move because to me it would be very difficult to do
Yes.
Pirates of the Caribbean without Captain Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
I still love the relationships between the characters from those first three, the initial trilogy, basically.
Yeah.
So
Right.
any way we can bring back some of those characters and get a lot of that
Yeah.
back and forth, that
Right.
kind of chemistry again, good and bad,
Yeah.
good guys together and also conflict.
Yeah.
It's the same reason I would want Barbossa to come back. It's like
Yeah.
he's just an indelible part of what the Pirates of the Caribbean world is.
Right. I know Johnny used to go around to children's hospitals with his costume, and he used to call it the Jack in the Box. It was the
Exactly.
I bring my Jack in the Box, and it entertains the kids.
Well, he would travel with the costume.
Yeah.
And Johnny takes that character very
Seriously.
personally
Yeah.
and very seriously. And some of what he's done for children in particular is just stunning. I also love it when he just shows up at Disneyland and just walks out the ride. You definitely get your money's worth that day.
Right. Right. I also heard there's a not haunted, Twilight Zone terror movie possibly coming. What do you think about writing a book for that?
Well, I'd be happy to. We'll just have to give Scarlett Johansson a call. Yeah, she was interviewed the other day and said it's still very much in development. She said it's a hard nut to crack, so it's going a little bit slower than they might have thought, but still in active development. And Scarlett has, not unlike Kevin Feige himself, has always been a huge Disney Parks fan.
Sure.
She was always a big Pirates and Haunted Mansion fan, so when I worked on the book about the Avengers, I talked to her about that, and she's always been kind of a theme park junkie, and Twilight Zone Tower of Terror is one of those attractions that has such a rich backstory. There's definitely a movie to be told, a movie to be made there.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what she does with it. Not that the made-for-TV version wasn't good. I think we can do better. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I became
with
a good
apologies
friend
to Steve Guttenberg.
Yeah. Yeah. Became good friends with Mark Silverman, who did the voice of Rod Serling.
Oh, yeah, the voice of Rod Serling.
Yeah. He actually just, I think a couple of weeks ago, left me a voice message on Messenger in Rod's voice, which is hysterical. Anyway.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have to ask a personal question. I saw many D23 events with Jason, and Alex. The Jason, Alex show. How did you? Did you guys plan any of that stuff? I felt like, not that it wasn't planned, but a lot of it was like stuff you had, and then stuff you didn't write, but you just had in your heads that you were just entertaining us. The one on Epcot carpet, I think, was one of my favorite.
People do enjoy hearing about the wall-to-wall
carpeting.
That's something that came very organically because when you work at a place like Disney or Universal, like-minded people tend to congregate together. Sure. And I was drawn to Alex Wright and Jason Grant, and then later on Wyatt Winter came in as an intern, and then now he's an executive producer there.
Right.
To the point where it got back to me at one point that online we were referred to as the Mouse Pack, which I thought was hysterically funny. Without all the coolness. Yeah, it's like, in my case, the booze was there, but without all the cool factor. No, but we would, we just gravitated toward each other in our work. And then because of the books, I started making more appearances and things. And then I think there were a couple of opportunities to bring them in just because there was a natural chemistry between us, because the friendship would come out. Right. And then as the years went by, Wyatt Winter join that little group. And then when I left Disney for Universal, that trio, I think, kind of carried on as a little cabal.
Yeah.
But we're still on a group text chain called the Mouse Pack, and who knows, the Mouse Pack may ride again. I've got a couple freelance gigs coming up with Disney, and hopefully it will lead to the formal return of the Mouse Pack coming soon to D23. I hope.
Yeah, I recently told you a story. I was at one of the events and I took a picture, and you happened to have hugged Jason Grant, and Jason Grant, I think, saw the picture and texted a friend of mine, says Jason Grant wants a copy of that picture. I said, sure. So he emailed me and said, can I get a copy of the picture? I said, sure. And he then sent me the picture framed on his desk. He said, I think he wrote back, I'm going to keep this on my desk because Jason Surrell has never hugged me before. and I want to keep this picture on my desk, which was probably not true.
No, well, I like to believe that it is. Although the funny thing is, he called me one time at like 10:30 at night.
Right.
And I kid you not, spent the better part of 5 minutes, which is a long time if you just time it, apologizing for calling after 10. And finally I just said, I go, Jay, we're friends.
Yeah.
You know that, right?
Yeah.
He goes, yeah. I go, you're allowed to call me and without apologizing. That's part of what being a friend is.
Right.
He goes, well, it's late. I'm like, just stop. What do you want? I go, this is the annoying part. I didn't mind the initial phone call, but this is a pain in the ass.
Yeah. That's funny.
No, we're still very, very close friends.
Good.
I think
I'm glad to hear. I'm glad to hear. And listen, I'd love to see the trio come back together in some shape. You probably should do a podcast together.
Yeah, hashtag the Mouse Pack returns.
Yes. People, you don't have to do it weekly. I think like once a month, just get together and just banter about stuff. I think people would watch it and listen.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Get that going. Make that viral. Hashtag the Mouse Pack returns.
I have Jason's email. I'll email him. See if he's interested. All right. Favorite Disney park or Universal park or attraction?
That's easy. Disneyland is my favorite place on the planet. Yeah. It's like it's my laughing place, basically. And I feel similarly about the cruise ships, not even one in particular, but just when I'm on a Disney cruise ship or I'm at Disneyland, I'm home and feel as comfortable and as at ease as a chronic neurotic is able to feel.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've been coming to Disney. I came to Disney World every year since 1976. My father came on our first trip, and then we came back every single year because not us kids liked it. He loved it. And he said, well, we're going to Disney World every year. And that's what happened. So you would think Disney World, but I agree. Disneyland, I feel like they're so close to each other and the park is so packed. Like you don't have to wear out a pair of sneakers getting from like Frontierland to Tomorrowland. It literally, you can almost touch it standing in the hub. You touch the signs.
Yeah, and there's an intimacy to it that you don't get anywhere else. Yeah. And again, that was probably a function of Walt could only buy so much land and could only afford to build so much. But that's part of what gives Disneyland its charm, is that it something that was initially a constraint, potentially, actually winds up contributing pretty heavily to why it's so beloved.
Yeah. And the cruise ship, I agree with you 100%. We're going in November on the Treasure. It'll be my 6th trip. And I feel like I am immersed in the Disney there. Yeah. Themed dining, themed shows. I don't have to go anywhere. It's just, it's easy. It's easy.
I remember on my first cruise that I did kind of a guest speaking gig on when I was still at Imageenerr. I remember I booked a meeting with the cruise director just to gush for a half hour. I said, I don't know what you guys are putting in the water here, but like just the guest service is off the chart, amazing. Everyone seems thrilled to be there, and it's just I think it's one of the best Disney vacations you can get today.
Yeah. I thought about working on the cruise ship, and I'm like, 6 months down below, not seeing sunlight. I don't know. That might ruin the magic for me.
Well, you're not in the hold of a ship.
Yeah.
You make it sound like you're a pirate doing a crossing or
Well,
something.
somebody told me, well, if you have, like, say, a kitchen job, that wasn't what I was applying for, but if you have a kitchen job, you really don't see sunlight until, your day off, because
Right,
you're
right.
inside a kitchen all day, and then you go to your bunk, which doesn't have a window, so it'd be like Groundhog Day,
Yeah,
re-
exactly.
repeat
Exactly.
and rinse. Most underrated attraction.
Ooh.
That's a toughie.
Yeah, that is because I'm trying to, this may seem like a weird answer,
Mm,
but the way I'm interpreting the question, I think it's the best one I can come up with. I would say the Enchanted Tiki Room at Disneyland, only
okay.
because it's not for everyone your immediate go-to, and
Yeah.
yet every time I go to it, it's packed. It's got the most diverse audience you can imagine:
Yes.
four quadrant, old, young, adults, children,
Yep.
um, and they're singing along.
Hmm.
And I'll never forget one time I was with the Imagineers, and I said, that's the power of this attraction.
Yeah.
And the reason I say Disneyland in particular is because you don't necessarily see that in Florida.
Right.
But at Disneyland, the Enchanted Tiki Room is like this cultural institution
Yeah.
that will hopefully be forever preserved. And even though there are blockbuster experiences like Star Wars and Indiana Jones
Mhm.
Adventure and
Yeah.
Avengers Campus, there's just something about the crowd pleasing simplicity of Enchanted Tiki
Yeah.
Room that I think in its own way makes it underrated. And the
Yeah.
reason I think it's weird is because it's well known.
Sure.
Everyone knows what the Enchanted Tiki Room is, but it's not necessarily on someone's list of go-tos or lists of
Right.
favorites. But when
Right.
you do go, you're just swept away in the magic, and it's incredibly, almost deceptively powerful. I would also say the same, not for the same reasons, but because it was on my mind because we went recently. Muppet Vision 3D, I think, was
Yeah.
always underrated.
Yeah.
In that it's probably one of the single funniest attractions that's
Hmm.
ever been created for a theme park. And
Right.
it was the last project personally supervised by Jim Henson.
Right.
And just seeing it for the last time before it closed, I was really lamenting the loss because,
Yeah.
again, even if it's not on your go-to list every day, it's this jewel of an
Mhm.
experience,
Yeah.
and that in many ways is the definition of underrated.
Yeah. Yeah. They should really just take that video and just put it on Disney Plus. People would watch it all day long.
Yeah, absolutely.
I say they watch it all day long. They just put out on the Disney Park YouTube channel a 4-hour video of the monorail, and
Oh,
it's
wow.
it's just a monorail going from station to station. Doors open, you hear the spiel. Doors close, you move to 4 hours of that, Jason, on the monorail. I'm like, people miss it.
There's an audience for everything.
There
Although
is.
I've gotten hooked on a lot of these Disney ambiance
Yes.
videos.
Hmm.
I'll go to sleep by them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of them are like spooky. Like
Yeah.
Haunted Mansion, or I
Right.
love the Indiana Jones Adventure one because it's all the sound effects of the
Yeah.
temple.
Yeah. There's a
But yeah, people
Galaxy's
want to
Edge
bring.
one too.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
people want to bring,
Yeah.
in a way, that's the ultimate bringing the experience home with you.
Right.
If,
Right.
if you're falling asleep to Disney imagery with music and sound effects, it's because you're trying to tap into that experience that you love so much
Yeah.
when you're physically in the parks.
Yeah. It's probably soundscape brainwashing, but that's okay.
I don't mind. I'll take whatever at this point.
Right. A Disney or even Universal IP that you wish they would have turned into an attraction.
You mean a film?
Yeah, like maybe a movie that would have been a great movie, and this,
It's funny because most of my answers to that have attractions. So
Mhm.
it would be, I want to do this, but in a different way,
Sure.
or redo it. A perfect example, I think the one that comes to mind immediately is Jaws. I would love to bring
Oh
Jaws
yeah.
back at Universal
Yeah.
with the technology that we have
Yes.
today. When you see what we had been doing with the dinosaurs,
Mhm.
I would love to be able to do that in the water.
Yeah.
with a great white shark. Same thing with Back to the Future. And then even on the Disney side, it's like I would love to have a shot at a new Haunted Mansion. I would love to
Mm,
get to do additional Star Wars attractions, additional Indiana Jones attractions.
yeah.
So most of my dream gigs already have attractions or have had them
Yeah.
in the past. It's just it's what I love so much that I would really kill to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're taking one off for me with the Monsters ride. But I feel like this was a lost opportunity where they could have turned that whole area of the park into like a Pixar place. Had the monsters, the Toy Story. I feel like it belongs on the other side of the park, but space is space, and you got to put it where you can, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where if people want to reach out to you, Jason, your books are all on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And if they're out of print, you can go to Amazon Marketplace or
Yeah,
eBay. I
right.
mean, they're all available.
Yeah.
It's just how hard you have to look for them. I think the Haunted Mansion and the Art of the Avengers are the two that are currently
Okay.
still in print.
Okay.
But I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn. I don't have Instagram. I don't have a huge social media presence.
Yeah. I don't blame
That
you.
may change in the future. You never know. Maybe we'll get a Mouse Pack podcast.
I may keep you to that.
Yeah, sure. Get it out there. I'll talk to the guys.
Yeah. I have to thank you for coming on. I love talking, theme park, Disney, storytelling. It's not that I want to be an Imagineer. I'd like to get a look behind the scenes and see how things are made and created. So this is fun for me. So I have to thank you for coming on. I'm glad we finally got it together and pulled it off.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
The Disney Parks podcast is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company. All Disney parks, attractions, lands, shows, event names, etc. are registered trademarks of the Walt Disney Company.